Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond Our World with Jeff Freeman and John Edwards. John, how you doing tonight?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, hey, tonight we decided to we were talking with our friend Cort Lindahl, who's here with us tonight. Welcome, Cort. Thank you for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey,
Appreciate it.
yeah, we were talking with Cort. We know that Cort is very well versed in all things about the American Revolution and all of the videos that you have done about the Beals, and I mean, just goes on and on. And honestly, some good books that you've written. But we didn't really know that you were had some paranormal experiences as well. So we got talking about that. We thought, okay, we got to do we got to have you on the show and talk about some of your paranormal experiences and share those with us tonight. So thank you for coming again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. I think a lot of people have experiences in their life with, unexplained things,
Mhm.
even no matter how skeptical you may be of this or that sometimes things just happen, that you can't explain really. So
Yep.
I'm here to tell you about a few incidents that have happened to me in the past.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, and that's the thing. You're exactly right. I think most people, whether they want to admit it or not, have had some sort of paranormal experiences. Um, and, or even, if you want to call it paranormal or even, UFO experiences. But they don't, they may not want to talk about it, and that's okay. And I know that Matty Blake had commented, and he mentioned it once. He said, you could say a paranormal believer, but once you've had an experience, a true paranormal experience, now you are, rather than being a believer or whatever, or an investigator, you are an experiencer. So I like what he said that one time, because it's true. Once something very profound happens to you, it changes, you a little bit, and you become a little bit less or more apt to believe in it, and then look out for that kind of stuff going on down the road. So, um, before we get into some of your stories, I did want to talk a little bit about, a little bit of housekeeping first. For John and I, we have this channel. Well, it's actually on my JFree906 channel. It's Beyond Our World. And if you're out here on the YouTube side, we'd appreciate if you click on that subscribe button and then click the notification bell so you know when we're going to be coming out with new content. I think John and I, we're going to try to do these on Sunday nights, every other Sunday night, or as much as we can. We're going to be opposite. If I know a lot of our members and viewers are also members and viewers of Jake Roberts' show, and we don't want to conflict with
Yeah.
his. So we're going to be opposite his show, which is next week his will be on, and then we'll probably be on the week after.
Yeah, so it'd be
So
opposite Ghost of Bacon.
yeah, yes,
That's
exactly.
yeah,
Opposite goes to bacon, right?
yeah,
So yeah, because we don't want to run up against his show. We know you guys like to, many of our viewers watch both, and that's great.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit tonight, and this is something that I think John and I are going to do a little bit more in depth discussions on down the road. But I was actually watching um, a video that's out on YouTube. It's actually been out there since last year, and it's about the 2016 NASA's New Horizons probe that was headed out. It was going and they were it was in going into the Hyper Belt or Kuiper Belt. I'm sorry, the Kuiper Belt, which is out on the edge of the solar system and out near where Pluto is. They found a particular, what they thought was just a plain old asteroid, but
Mhm.
it was rotating, and it was rotating rather quickly. And so they sent the probe, the New Horizons, over to get a better look at this thing. They said it was rotating at they said it was about the size of the state of Delaware, if you could get an
What?
idea of how big it was.
It's huge.
And it was rotating at one turn every 5.5 hours. That's pretty quick. Um, and
What?
they said that it had to be
Mhm.
made up of something. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Was that consistent rotation? Like it was like
Yes.
clockwork?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's interesting.
Yes. And they said that, made up of rock and ice, spinning that quickly, it would normally come fly apart. It wouldn't hold together with that mass, that much of a spin.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing about it, they were saying, was that it gets light and dark, light and dark, not with the spin. It's not coincided with the spin, but it is on a regular basis. It is, you can almost set a clock to it. It gets bright and then it gets dim, and it gets bright and it gets dim. So they wanted to check it out. They send the New Horizons probe over to get close to it to check it out. As soon as the New Horizons probe got close enough to it, it shut down. The probe shut down, and they lost contact with it. And they're all panicking. What the heck? Oh, did it crash into something? Did we not anticipate another asteroid out there or whatever? They were, obviously panicked because they thought maybe they just lost the New Horizons probe. But the time it would have been there and then gone past, it came back on. And they were not able to get any of the data that they wanted to get up close and personal from this asteroid. They named the asteroid it's ARAWN, Arwen. I think they called it Arwen. It's a Celtic god. It's the name of a Celtic god of death, war, and terror. So go figure that, right?
Hello.
Yeah,
exactly.
So
and that's kind of feed into the conspiracy crowd that they actually did capture images and information about it, and they're not telling us.
And they're not going to tell us. I know, right? So if you want to check that out, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth on one of our other shows, but it's out there you can find it on YouTube. And again, it's the New Horizons probe in the Kuiper Belt looking for Arwen, ARAWN is the name of the asteroid rock, or they think it might be some sort of a, you need to create a spin, has to be there for to create gravity, so the people could walk around and work and do things like that inside of a spacecraft that was traveling across space. You have to create the spin, so the artificial gravity. And so they were wondering, man, would that be some sort of artificial gravity that it's trying to create? I don't know. So we'll look into that a little bit deeper as we go along too, on another show. Obviously, we're not going to get into it too much tonight. Interesting though, don't you think?
Yeah, that is freaky. And that there's all kinds of unexplained things going on out there. I can't wait to see some of the things they come up with the new telescope they just sent up as well.
Yes. That'd be interesting.
The James Webb.
Right, exactly. I forgot the name of it, but yeah, that's going to be revealing too with regard to things like that, because they can zoom in on something like that with the telescope instead of just the other probe that went near there. So that should be interesting.
Yeah. Kate, according to what they said, it really did shut down. They said now, and again, they could be fibbing us, and telling us, oh man, it shut down. We didn't get any of the data, when in fact, we really did. They really got data, and they're just not going to tell us. I don't know. We don't know for sure, but pretty interesting though that it shut down. And then as about the length of time it would have taken for it to pass by, I don't know what that's, a day, whatever, it came back on. It just fired back up like nothing was wrong.
So is it an asteroid, Jeff? Is that what they're claiming it is?
As far as they could tell, yes.
Okay.
But so why does it light up and turn off?
It has a pattern. Now, that could be explained by something reflective on the surface. That as it does its rotation, it would make, ice would do that. Any sort of metal would do that. It doesn't have to be worked. It doesn't have to be alien. I mean, you can explain some of that away. The rotation's interesting because that's every 5.5 hours, like clockwork. I'm not sure. I mean, do asteroids really rotate like that? Maybe they do, because there's no force against it.
Right.
It's the shutdown is kind of interesting, because why would it shut down? And the question is, if it was something from the asteroid, was that what it was, or was it something here on Earth?
Again, gonna have to look into this. I'm gonna research this and we're gonna get more detail for an upcoming show, I think, on this one. Let's see, who was that said, whoops, I got this replying here. Let me get out of that so I can see the chat. Janet, that was the New Horizons, Horizons Horizons probe. New Horizons probe. It's NASA. This was a thing done in 2016 that I just found out about. Yeah. So, but yeah, they said the rhythm. Oh, the illumination of it is, and then it goes dark. Is a precise rhythm. It's very precise. It doesn't. Um,
Wow, my
yeah.
internet's glitching for whatever reason.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Really interesting.
Another thing I wanted to throw out there, just before we get into, I know everybody wants to hear what Cort has to say. We'll get there in just a second. I just wanted to throw these things out there real quick. Oh, and say hi to some people too. I know Houston, Texas. Dave is here, and let's see who else. They Woken One. Hi, Woken One. Tom Burns is here. D Jones, Curtis Bennett. Let's see, Wanda, Kate. Let's see, Barbara Duncan, of course. We already BC St. James, Sandollar Ray, Jeff's in the house. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah. So Mary's here. So thanks, guys, for coming by tonight. We're gonna. I know we didn't put out a lot of fanfare saying, "Hey, guess what? We're gonna have a show on Sunday night," but we're gonna try to do these every other Sunday, at least as much as we can, going forward. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to ask you folks about, and to our panel of John and Cort, what do you think about the findings and the disappearance of giant skeletal, humanoid looking skeletons that are very large, like twice the size of a man? I mean, in the Bible, they talk about that. They did talk about a race of giant beings. In the Bible, it says so. In matter of fact, Goliath was one of them. He was like one of the last of them, as far as I can tell. And David, of course, went out there and slew him with a sling and hit him right in the middle of his forehead with a rock, knocked him out, and then he went over and took his head off. What do you guys think about that? Well, that's another one of these areas of interest for me. I don't know. I'm just, what do you guys think?
Yeah, well, I have a little bit of skepticism about that, but I think there could be real things and real reasons that, it's a phenomena that people are interested in and talk about. I mean, it's true that we even know today there's individuals who are unusually tall and large. That, it's just kind of natural way things work. I mean, one of the things I found through looking into Scottish history a lot is a lot of Scottish knights were unusually large for the time period in which they lived in. Like Sir James Douglas, for instance, was 6'4", which is pretty big for the 14th century. And the other ones are mentioned as well. I came across this quite often where even Sir Walter Scott had the skull of a giant guy, I can't remember his name, that was also a Scottish knight, that in his antiques collection he had this and the story that went with it. So there is something to that for sure. I mean, like a lot of these subjects, get sold and distorted and people sensationalize them in some cases, but to really look at it from a practical perspective, it's true that there have always been really big people all throughout history, much less something like Goliath or the Titans in Greek mythology, that there could be a real rational explanation for something like that too.
Yep. That's true. It could be. I know there's a team of guys that are on the History Channel. The
Jim Vieira.
Yeah. The brothers, they travel to the Ozarks, and there's they have a show, and it's called in this particular one, it's Massive Human Bones Found in the Ozarks, and it's called Search for Lost Giants. Season 1, episode 2, and that was just out last year. So these guys are actually looking for this stuff, and I tell you, I'm there. And there was some bones, giant bones that were found years ago that somebody had, and then they came up missing. Wasn't they in the Smithsonian or something, and the bones were all of a sudden just gone? Interesting that they accidentally just threw them out or something. I mean, I
don't know. I've heard of that, but did they have excess bones and they just start throwing bones away?
Maybe, but or did they not want people to know about it? But again, it's in the Bible, and talking about a race of giant people, people obviously much taller than normal man.
I think Cort had a great observation, when we were talking about giants at Indian burial grounds.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, all in the way you lay out the bones that could actually elongate the structure of the burial. I mean,
that could explain some of them, for sure, because when you place a body in the ground, it becomes disarticulated, and the way the bones become spread out in the grave could fool somebody into thinking that the person was a lot taller than they actually were, just based on that. And it's also, that's one of these subjects that's kind of titillating and, could have been distorted somewhat over the years. I notice a lot of really old newspaper articles about lost giants, lost treasures, where it was a popular way to sell newspapers as well. But I wouldn't totally discount that as being something somebody was interested in. I could understand that. I always tend to look at such things with a little bit more skepticism than all the things you see in the media or the TV shows that present ideas like that. So my mind's open.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of kind of exaggeration, maybe it would be the kind way to put it, in that field of interest as well.
Yeah. And again, there is some talk, like I said, it's in the Bible. It's also, there's that story, like I said, mentioned years ago, that they had those bones and they were all collected up, taken to the Smithsonian, and then they came up missing, just simply missing. So they're not really sure. And then again, it also kind of gets into, Bigfoot. I mean, people, I have not personally seen or anything. I've not seen a Bigfoot, or I've not seen anything that would tell me, oh, that looks like a Bigfoot, anything like that at all. Do I believe it? I do, because I talk to people who honestly believe they have seen one.
Right.
So for that, and I don't discount those people. They are very, our friend that we've had on the show twice now, Christian Roper, who was on the very first episode of Beyond Oak Island. He's a treasure hunter. He has seen a Bigfoot, and he has some stories about that. So, and I believe him. So I haven't seen one. I'd like to, maybe, I don't know. So are they true? I don't know. Where's the bones of them? Are they these large bones that people are finding? Now, they would be a little bit differently shaped. I think look more like a gorilla skull, I would think. I don't know, but
there would be some difference between that and a human being, no doubt. And I mean, I've worked in the wilds of Northern California and all over wilderness areas in the West, in the Intermountain West, for years, way out in the boonies, and have never seen anything like that. I mean, there's been a few times where I got a weird feeling being in the woods alone, but that's not so uncommon. But I did work in one place called Jarbidge, Nevada, where they had a legend that really just matches the whole Skinwalker Ranch thing too. The creature there is called the Jarbidge, and it's basically a man-eating Bigfoot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's a native Paiute legend in the Great Basin. And when I worked there, it was funny. I had to deal with some ranchers who were exchanging land to the Bureau of Land Management. And we had to camp out because it was so far from everything. And they attempted to scare us with the story of the Jarbidge. Yeah, that's what it was called. And that's the name of the little town that's right there too. You have to go like 50 miles down a dirt road just to get to Jarbidge, Nevada. It's right on the border of Idaho and Nevada. And when I started hearing all the hype about the Skinwalker Ranch, I realized that this story had the same origins in Native American myth that the Skinwalker story does. And by the way, I also worked within like 5 miles of the Skinwalker Ranch for over a month. Yeah, doing an archaeological survey. And The only thing I remember hearing about that, I think, was my boss mentioned one day that there were a lot of UFO stories in the area.
Yep.
And when I watched the movies or watched the TV show, I've seen all the same landscape and places.
Wow. Wow.
But I didn't experience anything
Really
at all there.
How long were you there?
For over a month, probably about 6 weeks.
Wow.
And just walking through, you know, desert where nobody goes, and the project area butted the Skinwalker Ranch, you know, property. So it was right there near Roosevelt, Utah, where they're putting in oil fields was the reason I was there.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's interesting too, that I worked in 2 places that featured similar creature, you know.
It is.
But I never saw anything out of the ordinary while I was
That's pretty wild. Yeah, so we did last year. We did. I'm a fan of the Skinwalker Secret of Skinwalker Ranch TV show, and we did I did a recap. Jack Campbell and I recapped that show last year, and we're going to do it again this year. John and I are going to do it here on Beyond Our World. We're going to recap every episode of Skinwalker Ranch this season. And you know, the more I got into that, and obviously doing the recaps of the show, you get into all the details a lot more deeper than just watching one episode and you move on to the next one. We were breaking them down, analyzing the technology that they were using and all that kind of stuff. And I tell you, I honestly believe there is some crazy stuff happening in that whole Uintah Basin. You know, Robert Bigelow Aerospace, he owned that property, and he did a lot of. But he won't reveal any of what he found. All of his evidence is locked away.
Right. And there's lots of sightings there, even beyond Skinwalker Ranch in the whole region. You know, it's not just the ranch itself, but you know, after I realized I worked there, I looked into it a little bit more, and watched the show a few times, and looked at some of the documentaries about it and things like that. And it is interesting. All of it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, there is definitely some crazy stuff happening out there. You know, what that turns out to be, I don't know, but those guys are doing a lot of good investigating, trying to find out, you know, with the electromagnetic interference going off, the signals going off, all just out of the blue. What I found really cool was compasses changing. And they were doing a drill rig. They had a big drill rig out there. They were going into this one area. They call it the little triangle over there. And they were drilling into it, and their compasses would point to the drill rig rather than north.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. So it was punching in the ground, and the drill rig was in the ground. So all of a sudden, it became north for their handheld compasses.
Right. It's an interesting area. There's uranium deposits there. Lots of like dinosaur fossils. When I was walking around, you'd walk through areas where there, you could see just pieces of it laying on the surface.
Wow.
You know, so it's an interesting area like that. And one thing I do remember is some of the most spectacular Native American rock art that I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
That was like fully conceptual artwork. This stuff wasn't just stuff scratched on rocks. It was like a hunting scene, and, you know, a lot more elaborate than many of them you see that kind of had a theme to them. So that's very interesting too.
Yeah.
That's a really cool and isolated area. There's only a few small towns there. I guess the oil thing has brought more people in recently. They are extracting oil in that area now.
Yeah, really, it is pretty cool. So yeah, how do you spell that? Jarbidge? How do you spell that?
Jarbidge.
Okay, that's how I spelled it. All right, I wanted to be sure, because I'm going to look into that.
Yeah,
that stuff fascinates me, so I'm going to definitely check that out.
Yeah, that's also the name of the town.
Right, yeah. All right, because I tell you, skinwalkers, you know, and that's the thing about, I always like when it comes to paranormal stuff or even UFO stuff, you know, I really take a lot of heed to what the Native Americans or, you know, First Nations people talk about in their legends that are passed down. They've seen stuff.
Sure.
They call them star people, or they call them, you know, they got different names for these folks, you know, like talking about aliens and stuff, you know, coming down and speaking to them and having, you know, teaching them things. And they carry this throughout their tradition. They pass it down from generation to generation. Sure. And you know what? I don't, that's not, you know, something I'm going to discount. Really. I'm going to, you know, that's
right. No, that's a good indication. There's something to it. It's kind of like the Wendigo legend of the Northern Plains, Native Americans, and in Canada, of the man-eating Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something in common a lot of native groups have of an image like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there definitely could be something to it. Or in the past, if not today, it could have actually happened. You know,
a man-eating Bigfoot, Cort.
Mm-hmm.
I have not heard this before. What's the scoop on the man-eating Bigfoot?
Well, that's what the garbage is supposed to be. What I was
right. Okay.
Yeah, that's what the legend, the Native American legend there, and it's actually called like Tawashashabits and was anglicized to Jarbage.
Okay.
So it's a Paiute name, and it's a Native American legend, just like the one you see at Skinwalker Ranch, where there's a creature, the Skinwalker.
Where does it? Where's its habitation? Where is it located?
Well, it's in the Great Basin, just like the Skinwalker Ranch is. It's probably about 500 miles to the west, though, north of Elko, Nevada, right on the Idaho state line, Nevada-Idaho state line. So it's a region where a similar story would be valued by different Native American groups as well.
What's interesting, because early Native American stories, as well as the work of, I think the gentleman's name, David Paulides, who investigates missing persons in these national parks, and can't attribute to how they disappear and why their remains are sometimes found perfectly preserved, but different body parts missing, and and now you're speaking of a man eating basically Bigfoot.
Right. I would caution, though. I mean, he points out like their clothes are left sometimes and things like that. They always take off their shoes. I've listened to him somewhat, but I did note that during the recent Gabby Petito missing person, case, that 9 people, other missing remains, were also found in the course of searching for her and her husband.
Really?
Yeah. So they found 9 other people in the course of looking for the remains of those 2 people. So that could account for at least some of those in that, strange phenomena as he defines it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's interesting. Wanda mentioned that about her grandmother being scared to death of owls. Once you see one, she said, once you see one, someone dies. Native American. Wow. That's I hope not. I've seen a couple of owls. I don't know.
Me too. I have one hooting outside my house every night almost.
Jeez.
Yeah, and you're in California, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking California. Of that, I was reading a little bit. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to finish it yet. But you had some stories about Mount Shasta. Did that have?
Yes. The whole Native American legend of Mount Shasta involves, the creator that emerging from the mountain. That's his wigwam.
Mm-hmm.
And then his daughter mating with the grizzly bear to create a different kind of creature. So that also fits the Bigfoot, the kind of paradigm of the way Native American people view that subject and value it in their own faith and the way they think about the world.
Right.
So that's part of the whole thing. And it's interesting too that, the mountain was his wigwam. And then in modern times, this kind of got morphed into the sci-fi notion of the city of Telos beneath Mount Shasta, and other stories that are similar to even Oak Island or other hidden vault and treasure stories. There's one called The Legend of J.C. Brown at Mount Shasta, where he goes 11 miles inside the mountain and finds mummies and that had high technology, and golden tablets are mentioned, which is an interesting Mormon association possibly in that story. But that one's interesting because it was actually featured in the Stockton, California newspaper in the early 1930s, where this man claiming to be J.C. Brown, told all of these stories and organized an expedition. And then on the morning they were supposed to go to Mount Shasta, he never showed up or was heard from again.
Wow.
So that's one of those really cool stories that got all those hooks, of strange things going on. And that's all featured in my Mount Shasta series.
Yes, that's
videos on YouTube. So y'all can check that out.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, you got to check that out, folks. He's got some really cool videos. Cort does out on YouTube. If you just look up Cort Lindahl, you'll find them. There's a lot of interesting things covering quite a few different subjects because you've been an archaeologist.
Yep.
I mean, you've been all over the place. There's so many things you've done. As far and then I guess getting into the writing and all of that. But you're back in the day, you were talking about the hexagonal shapes. Is that what it was? The shape of like the
right, hexagonal and
hexagonal
structures that kind of represent a tradition of establishing a prime meridian.
Yeah.
So cultures began like the Tower of the Winds of Athens is the best example. It's a small octagonal tower that has a god for each of the 16 directions of the wind, which kind of translates to directional things, where they were creating what's known as an axis mundi, which is similar to if you're looking down at the North Pole on the top of a globe, you see this array of lines of longitude, stellating from the center. So they would just make a grid like that in a different city, Rome, Athens, Cairo, for example. In antiquity, these were how people were dealing with trying to define their world, on a map, for example. So like defining how big their domain is, how big their country or the parts of it that they control. So it started off that way, and the values of that extended through modern times to things like the Newport Tower and the Powder Magazine in colonial Williamsburg, where it became a tradition of people, of cartographers and astronomers as well, and astrologers. Of course, in antiquity, that was all linked to astrology.
Right. Now, there's been talk about, if you watch, like Ancient Aliens, I love that show. If you watch Ancient Aliens, you would see times where they take these lines, and I don't think I don't know if they're calling them.
Well, they called ley lines.
Ley lines
with the
all
magnetic
around the globe.
Right.
Is that possible they could tie together with what you're referring
to? It's similar. Though it's a similar concept that more is links temples together. And at first, when I started studying all that, I was more apt to, consider those kinds of ideas. But the more I looked into it, I found that it was cartographers, astrologers, and astronomers that were basically part of priesthoods, at that time. The augurs of Rome, for example, or the kneaders of Egypt that knew the real practical value of these things. But I mean, you can imagine a band of robed people out at night setting up a couple of stakes in a place where they can sight the pole star and then use that to start to define their world and survey the city, and things like that would seem very strange to people. But yeah, some of those bigger, a ley line is a little different than what I'm talking about, but it does have things in common for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that. I just thought about that as you were talking about the lines of meridian. So, and they were tying together like, the temples in Egypt with the temples and the Mayan temples and things like that, and going around the globe. And it was really interesting when you think about that. It's like, how do they
right. That would predispose a worldwide, organization doing it. But what I found was things like the octagonal form of the Dome of the Rock points to the Egyptian obelisk at the center of St. Peter's Square. And then the array of windrose markers around the obelisk actually points back to the Dome of the Rock. So one of the facets of the octagon of that structure actually points to Rome, in the Vatican.
Interesting.
So the octagonal structures are a Greek tradition that later the Byzantines advanced the art of cartography or measuring the earth even more than the Greeks had. And even Constantine built 3 octagonal structures that I believe were meant to mark prime meridians, or places from which to measure.
Yep. It's funny reading Kathy Splash said, I ran into Lou Elizon a Zondo, and a grocery store in Montana. His cart was filled with mayonnaise and pickles. I wonder what that was all about.
We're getting the real drop on Lou now.
Yeah, exactly.
But thanks, Kathy. That's cool info.
That is pretty cool. Ape from Another World said, anytime, supposedly Eisenhower met with them. Are you talking about? I missed that. Must have been another portion of it that I'm missing here, but some kind of treaty. Oh, with the aliens.
Yeah, that's a steady rumor that's been going along for years that, I guess you really can't absolutely prove.
Right. Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Is that the Majestic 12, what you're referring to, Cort?
No, I'm vaguely familiar with that term and name, but I'm not probably as much keeping up with the UFO scene as you two are, though. I've been interested in it ever since I was a little kid. Living in Texas when my dad was stationed there. I grew up in the Air Force, and actually subscribed to this newsletter out of the back of a comic book, a UFO newsletter that was called Kavit Emptor, or Buyer Beware. And later that became more popular and more of a big thing. But when I was getting it, it was a mimeographed 2 sheets of paper.
Mimeograph. Wow. I remember
that. This was like, 1970 or something like that. And, I would read that, and that was just pretty straightforward. Somebody saw a UFO here or there, reported it, or they'd reproduce a newspaper article that talked about it and things like that.
All right. Yeah. And John and I had done a show, one of our Beyond Our World shows. We went through a lot of the modern presidents and what they had said or would not say, very zip-lipped about certain things that they were asked directly about, but all of them kind of leaned towards the fact that they knew a lot they could not talk about. And they really did. And it was pretty fascinating to watch. It's on our YouTube channel here. If you want to go back and watch it, it's out there. It's what did the presidents know? I think that's the title of it.
What's on page 34 of the Book of Secrets? Right?
Yes, yeah. Well, what was interesting, Cort, about that is Obama, does interviews on Jimmy Kimmel and other shows.
Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon, where he says, "I can't tell you, I can't tell you." And then recently he did an interview that Jeff and I showed where he says, "Well, I can tell you this, that when I was president, there were these UAPs that were unexplained, and he would get updates on those in his presidential briefings, more or less."
Sure.
So he knew about them, but he couldn't talk about them when we go back to earlier interviews at all. He just says, "I can't tell you."
Yeah, right.
The top secret.
Yep.
So I think the presidents have known about these UAPs.
Probably whatever they are or whatever they're suspected to be, including unknown origins. It's only wise that we consider that as a matter of our own safety, when you really break it down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You have to look at it as a fact of national security.
Sure.
Cort, did you ever follow Project Blue Book? What do you know about it?
I've read about it. I watched the TV show, which I enjoyed a lot. It was a
great TV show, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was sad they canceled that one. But
me too.
And they just canceled The Lost Symbol too, which I'm bummed about.
That was a good show, yeah.
But yeah, the Project Blue Book is always of interest, just in the story of them actually looking at things like that and trying to find out, what the origins of these things are, if it's some kind of collective, hallucination or not. There's something to it. I mean, it's hard not to reason that there's other life in the universe.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just a matter of how much it's hyped. And one thing that's disappointing about today's UFO scene, I would guess, are like some of these gurus that pop up that work it like in a religious manner and like try to tell you who to vote for and those kinds of things. It's kind of gone beyond a simple observation of somebody saw something strange in the sky, like I did once. So that was one of the things we were.
Well, speaking of which, why don't you share that with us? What did you see?
Well, it was weird. It was a really big meteor. What I saw, I was working near a place called the Madeline Plains, about 50 miles to the east of Mount Lassen in Northern California. It was a desert environment. And we were all at a campground, you know, in the evening, you know, we had eaten dinner and we're having a few beers, and there were only two of us left out there, like in our lawn chairs, looking at this valley below us. You know, and I could see a significant way to the south and north from there too. We were probably 1,000 feet above the floor of the valley.
Right.
So we both looked up and we saw this huge, you know, flaming object, you know, leaving a trail of smoke, and it kind of appeared to be flying. I mean, this wasn't like the videos you see of a fireball where they kind of come down at an angle, you know, like this. This thing was going across the sky at what looked maybe a little bit faster than the average jetliner. And I would estimate it was between 15 and 20,000 feet high.
Wow.
And you could see chunks of it coming off, you know, that it was on fire basically, but the smoke covered it so much you would only see flashes of the, you know, orange colored flame beneath that. And it was going like, it looked like it was flying, which
like it was controlled.
The only reason I think it wasn't a meteor was because of that. It could have been controlled, or, I mean, I guess there's, as a freak of nature, the shape of it could have been such that it could appear to be flying. So I thought maybe it was space junk. That's one option. And or an actual meteor like that, but it did look like it was flying, was the biggest difference in why I didn't think it was a meteor. It didn't explode like some of the fireball videos you see.
Yeah.
It was moving a lot slower than that. Like we watched it probably for 3 minutes, you know, because our perspective was we could see the sky far to the north of where we were, and it was heading north from like the Reno area through the desert, through the eastern part of California where we were. And I pretty much watched it till it just disappeared, and it was still flying, you know. I mean,
Cort, how long did you see it? I mean, how long did you watch it?
I would say probably for at least 2 or 3 minutes. It wasn't just for 30 seconds or, you know, 10 seconds. I've seen other meteors before. I know what they look like and how quick. Boom, it's gone.
Over in 10 seconds.
Yeah, this was like a few minutes at least.
And did it have a shape?
You couldn't really tell because there was so much smoke coming off of it. But it kept a steady course, a steady direction and altitude.
Did it crash?
And it left a smoke trail that was visible for miles behind it.
So there was no explosion. It kept them the same altitude.
No, we saw it. It was still going by the time we couldn't see it anymore. And it was in the Reno newspaper the next day.
Oh, wow.
Was it descending at all, or was it constant height?
It didn't appear to be. I mean, it could have been so subtly that I couldn't tell, you know, but it was going horizontal and maintaining the same altitude for the whole time I saw it. And that was surprising too, that
that's bizarre.
Something like that, you know, if apparently no propulsion or whatever, just from the energy of it entering the atmosphere, still had that much, you know, energy behind it to keep flying like the way it was.
About what year was this?
That was probably 1996, maybe 1995. And that's something I've always thought about, you know, what that thing was a lot different than any other meteor I've ever seen. And I've seen some good meteor showers.
Yeah. Oh, I have too. Yeah.
Yeah. Meteors close by that it just didn't appear to be that. And if it was, I mean, this thing was at least the size of a Greyhound bus or a small airliner or something like that. I could tell just from the flashes of the parts that were on fire when the smoke wasn't covering it, that it did have some size to it.
Right. Wow.
And I would estimate if it did crash somewhere, it was probably somewhere in Eastern Oregon,
based upon the trajectory you
said. That I'm very familiar with because I worked in that whole area so much that it would have crashed somewhere north of Goose Lake in a very isolated area.
Cort, did it make a sound at all? Did you hear?
No, from where we were, we couldn't hear anything.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there were sparks and chunks of it coming off.
Kind of like when did it kind of look like similar to what the space shuttle when it returned and it burned up on reentry? You know, did you remember seeing pictures of that? All these different pieces were coming off and burning up on reentry.
Right. That's closer because the speed would have been similar. Right.
Wow. Interesting.
That. Huh. But obviously, if it was something like that, it was kept secret. And but I did think space junk, you know, a re-entering satellite or space piece of a space station or something secret the military has. Who knows things they wouldn't want us to know. But
exactly,
it did come down, you know, probably not that many people. I think some people north of Reno saw it, probably because the lights of the city. And then where I was, there were no lights. You know, you could see the Milky Way plainly and clearly. And there were some high wispy clouds that night, but very few. And that's what gave me a reference to how high the altitude of this thing was.
Wow. Wow, so that's really cool.
I can't explain what it was, but I saw it, and that's one of those things we're talking about in your life. You might just witness something weird.
Exactly. And it's unidentified. Yeah, you don't know what it is.
Yeah,
it falls under UAP classification.
Exactly. Right. And it was flying, but whether it was due to the shape of it or that it was meant to fly, I can't say, but it was.
Yeah. I saw something similar, like, well, not quite like that, but I mean, again, you know, you mentioned these things, and I mentioned it on the show before, but this was out in actually up in San Bernardino, in the mountains above San Bernardino. I lived up there near Crestline, Lake Arrowhead area for a while.
Right.
And we witnessed, we were out at a lake one night, had a campfire and that kind of stuff, and we were wrapping up and getting ready to head out, and we saw, you could see the airline. We were like below the path of the airlines would come in, flying into probably Los Angeles, I would think, or somewhere, one of the airports around the big city there. And we, you know, you'd see them, you'd see the airliner come in, you'd see its lights and the flashing, blinking lights on it and stuff like that. Very clear. You could hear them, you could see them, you knew what they were. And they were spaced out quite a bit apart, as they should be, because one's going to come in and land and the other one will be quite a bit back behind it. And we actually witnessed one. We were wrapping up. We were just sitting around there. The fire was just about out. We were letting it go out. We were watching this one come in, and we all, you know, I kind of looked up at it, and then behind it, following it, way too close to be another airline, was something following it that had similar light pattern. Lights coming like shooting straight ahead, like the airlines planes did. They have their landing lights on. It was similar to that. And it was following way too close. The airliner went by, we heard it, we saw it, we're all looking at it going, okay, yep. And here's this thing following it that made no sound at all.
Wow.
No Crazy. Sound whatsoever. It was similar, but not the same. There was no flashing lights, just the beams, couple of beams shooting straight forward. Like it was, and it was on the same, it was following.
Wow.
It was way too close. And it was like, okay, why isn't that one making any sound? It's like he's gliding in or what? I mean, that's not possible, right? So,
right. The stealth fighter is very quiet and bomber.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I lived in Virginia was when the stealth fighter first came out, and there was a rash of UFO sightings.
Yeah.
And then later they announced that they had been flying in those areas for several months.
Right.
You know, so some things people see could be, military things or
that kind of things.
I see pictures of flares, military flares all the time on YouTube that I've seen myself before many times with people wondering.
Right. You know, well, that's what they were trying to say this Phoenix lights were at one time. They were trying to say
that looks a little bit more than that. They are made to keep a certain altitude for a little while.
Right.
And things like that. So depending on how they're released in whatever pattern or something, people could mistake things like that for, you know, it goes back to the old, it was a weather balloon.
Yeah. Exactly.
From the 1950s, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, Jeff, I would like to shift gears for a second. Can I shift gears for a second? Okay. Cort, you've wrote about this before. I'm kind of curious. The White Lady of Avinelle. Can you talk about that?
Now, are we stepping in the paranormal?
We're stepping into the paranormal a little bit.
All right.
And this is I want to get to this before Cort, his time's up with us.
Right.
And then we can go back to UFOs. But Cort's kind of, this is one of Cort's expertises, I would say.
Right.
This story. I'd love to hear about it. You've written about it before.
Sure. It's the White Lady of Avinelle, which I first found out about because I'm Thomas Jefferson fanatic. I look into a lot of the things he did because he exposes a lot of secrets and things that people ignore. So I became familiar with his personal secretary, William A. Burwell, who was an interesting and very intelligent character. But I found even further that his son, William M. Burwell, had built the Avenil House in Bedford, Virginia. Now, this is the same town that's famous for the Beale treasure story.
Interesting.
I didn't really find the biggest crossover I found in those two stories is references to the Declaration of Independence, which will be revealed shortly.
Okay.
So
interesting.
William M. Burwell, by the way, was close friends with Edgar Allan Poe. He attended the University of Virginia at the same time Poe did, and when Poe passed, William M. Burwell was the only person to write an elegy for Poe, and that displays how good of friends they were. So when I word searched Avenil House, I found this ghost story that happens at the Avenil House in Bedford, Virginia. And the house is owned by the town, and you can rent it for events, weddings and receptions and whatnot. But over the years, there's been many sightings of what is known as the White Lady of Avinelle ghost in the home.
Wow.
So, I'm up for a good ghost story just like everybody else. I thought that was interesting. So naturally, I went to word search more about that, and I entered the White Lady of Avinelle. And I was amazed that a lot of the hits I came up with were referring to the White Lady of Avinelle from a Sir Walter Scott book called The Monastery that had been published in 1821. Now, Avenil House was built in about 1835 or 6. But I was like, wow, there's the White Lady of Avinelle in this book. And people see a White Lady of Avinelle at the Avenil House in Bedford, Virginia. I'm like, this is an interesting, mirroring of a real life event in an older piece of literature, which I'm really interested in. Have found secrets in by examining books like Philip Sidney's Arcadia and medieval novels, Modest de Gala and Don Quixote. So I decided to read The Monastery about the Avenel family. It involved a story about a Bible published in English, and this story took place in the mid 1500s when that was kind of illegal. The clergy had a monopoly on everything being in Latin, so the monks would come to the Avenel castle or home and confiscate the Bible, and then on the way back to the monastery, they would be confronted by this ghost, the White Lady of Avenel, who would either scare them so much they would drop the Bible and run away, or reason with them and get it back, and it would always end up back in the Avenel's home.
Wow.
Right. Whoa. So now, if that wasn't bizarre enough, there's a part of the book called the Epistle Introduction. And this is a fictional introduction to the book. So the introduction takes place after the American Revolution, while the rest of the book, as I stated, takes place in the mid 1500s. And yes, we see the comment, the White Lady is an old Celtic myth, and that's very true as well. And that's another reason it's interesting that Sir Walter Scott portrayed the White Lady in his book, because he's a famous Scottish author, as many of you know, I'm sure. So anyway, in the Epistle Introduction takes place after the American Revolution, and it tells the story of this man who was a Revolutionary War veteran on the British side. And he retires near Melrose Abbey in Scotland. And he becomes kind of an expert on the historical grounds of the abbey that had been destroyed during the Reformation, just after the time the plot of the book takes place. So he is visited by a monk that comes to say he knows where a treasure is hidden in the ruins of the abbey.
Yeah.
And through this course of events, the monk finds what appears to be the heart of Robert the Bruce.
Oh, wow.
In a casket, and he's allowed to take it away. And the monk even makes a statement that people along the Potomac and Susquehanna rivers would still appreciate this, but an appreciation of it in Scotland has waned and been forgotten somewhat. And during the period of Sir Walter Scott, that those things may not have been valued as much as they are in this kind of resurgence of Scottish pride we see, at this time, where people all know about the heart of Robert the Bruce and what it means. So as I researched more, I looked into literary historians who identified the character of the monk as being Thomas Jefferson.
Oh,
and the heart of Robert the Bruce being the Declaration of Arbroath, which all the Scottish lords I can't remember the exact date, I think in the 13 teens, just past the time of the Knights Templar, the Scottish people had been excommunicated, or Robert the Bruce had, by the Latin Church. So they wrote the Declaration of Arbroath to plead with the Vatican to aid them in their war against the English. And this is in the 14th century. So all of this was metaphorical and allegorical, that, again, I was amazed to find a U.S. Senate floor bill that states the Declaration of Arbroath was one of Thomas Jefferson's main influences in the Declaration of Independence.
Wow.
So here we have the son of the secretary of Jefferson building this house with that name that refers to the book that tells you about the Declaration.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that later in history, there's a ghost story that even leads you to these assumptions, the way I had been kind of went through this process of finding out what it was, and what was going on. So even further, I researched that the Burwell family, who actually are in part descended from the sister of the elder Nathaniel Bacon of Jamestown and Williamsburg, they're actually are Bacon family members as well. So that kind of adds some mystique to the story. But they were also directly related to the Avenel family of Scotland that Sir Walter Scott had written the book about. So this is them, just the name of the home tells you this. And of course, back to my octagonal structures, right? Nearby Bedford, just about 14 miles away, is Thomas Jefferson's Poplar Forest estate, which is a copy of the Dome of the Rock.
Oh, wow.
It's an
I had not heard that before.
Yeah, it's an octagonal structure, and one of the facets of that points directly to the Avenil House.
Really?
Yes. And
again, not a coincidence.
The exact opposite direction points to his ancestors' Wilton House near Williamsburg, which was named after the home of Mary Sidney Herbert, who wrote the book Arcadia, that part of my Oak Island theory is even based on.
Right.
And via this train of research, I found out Thomas Jefferson was actually related to Philip Sidney via his ancestor that was Sidney's uncle.
Wow, interesting.
Basically, right. So it's really interesting that a literary reference, tells of a treasure that was brought to America and only appreciated by people along the Potomac rivers and Susquehanna rivers, that then can be an allegory for the Declaration of Independence, maybe the real treasure in question.
Right.
So given that the Avenel House is in Bedford, Virginia, which is kind of the center of Beale treasure studies for many people, and as we know, the only solved cipher from the Beale treasure uses the Declaration of Independence as a cipher key.
Interesting.
Are we talking
it sounds very much like National Treasure.
Yeah,
right. This is one of those stories I've come up with that I think reflects a more realistic view of that national treasure idea or phenomena that many people suspect that, of course, in the movies, they go for the Ark of the Covenant and all these Egyptian treasures and things like this. But in early America, early United States, there was a big move to instill values of our country in literature and stories like this. That is the reason that could be considered the treasure in and of itself. But I mean, there are indications something else may have been hidden there. After the Civil War, Robert E. Lee was related to the Burwell families of Avenil House. So he actually made a visit there that was supposed to be secret. And the local newspapers found out about it, and it became a secret no more. And I read the old newspaper articles about it and everything, but it's very interesting. I think if there's missing items associated with Avenil House, William N. Burwell's father, also William, had an extensive correspondence with Thomas Jefferson about the medals, certificates, and swords of the Society of the Cincinnati, which are very full of symbolism as well. This is a group of Revolutionary War officers that formed the Society of the Cincinnati after the American Revolution. It includes Frenchmen like Pierre L'Enfant and the Marquis de Lafayette, as well as George Washington and all the other officers from the American Revolution. So there's a lot of theories out there that the designs of these, like Pierre L'Enfant designed the medals and the certificates, that there could be, esoteric hidden things in the engraving and other aspects of those pieces of art. For instance, each sword had a different scene of Roman or Greek mythology engraved on the blade of the sword that they were all awarded. So the correspondence, there was some dispute between Jefferson and Harry Lee, or Henry Lee was his name. Light Horse Harry Lee, they called him, even though his name was Henry. I don't understand that one, but it's true. During the Revolution. And he was looking for his Society of the Cincinnati regalia that he had never been awarded. And so William A. Burwell, the Jefferson secretary, was trying to make sure he got that to him. And I feel that it may have been hidden in Avenil House or ended up there, and Robert E. Lee ended up coming and claiming it after the Civil War.
Wow. Interesting how that all kind of ties together. What how do you spell Avenil House? How do you spell that?
Avenel. Avinelle.
Okay.
And that family actually turned into, the full name of the family is Avenel Desaix.
Okay.
So the Desaix turned into Desaixton, the name of a town, and that brought us to the famous Seton family of Scotland that built Dunfermline Abbey, where the body of Robert the Bruce is buried, and then his heart was later buried at Melrose Abbey. And I did find an actual real historical member of the Avenel Desaix family whose heart was also buried in the chapter house at Melrose Abbey.
Wow. Now, why would they do that? Why would they bury that? Why would they keep the heart? What was the symbolism behind that?
Yeah, that is a strange tradition in many eras of history, like Frederick Barbarossa during the Crusades died on his way there in southern Turkey, and his heart was buried in Tarsus.
That's just...
where St. Paul was from, and then his body was buried in a chapel in Antioch. There's stories about Otto II and other Holy Roman emperors having this tradition of burying different parts of their body in different places. So that's not very uncommon. And often, these are stories like Charlemagne and Barbarossa being involved in that led us to these man in the mountain mysteries.
Right.
Where they would intentionally leave clues behind to a vault of information or riches. And these are legends too, with some reality behind them. But this later became a core tenet of Rosicrucian thought, with Christian Rosenkreutz being entombed in an unknown mountain in a 7-sided chamber with a library of esoteric information.
Interesting. Wow.
So there's a long string of traditions like that of people, burying body parts of important people in different places and having seemingly intentionally contrived stories that are associated with that.
Yeah.
So that whole story in Avenil House was very interesting, reflective of Scottish culture in America. Even the, if you wouldn't read the Epistle Introduction of the book, you would never see the connections to the Declaration of Independence. So I feel like even him naming that house was him giving you a clue, where to look and what you might understand about him and his family, even by examining the quote mystery at hand.
Wow. So, I wanted to ask, is it spelled Desaye or Saeay?
I think it's Avinelle, DE space SAYE.
Okay. I'm right.
And that eventually turned into the Seton family, Seton, of Scotland, who are very famous and influential, even in relation to the Knights Templar in Scotland.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm jotting these things down so I can look into them. So go ahead.
It's all in my book I wrote too, the American Treasures and the Declaration of Independence, because I found several different stories that referred to the Declaration in this mysterious way, including the Beale treasure.
Wow.
The story of the Bruton Vault in Williamsburg also has some hidden tenets of it that refer to the Declaration as well.
Wow. I think you've mentioned that before. Yeah. Okay. So that's I'm gonna have to get that book too. Oh my gosh, you got too many books for me to read.
There's quite a few of them.
So so do you think that the white lady, because that was always ending up back in there? Do you think that she? What do you think that was all about? What's your take on the white lady showing up like that?
Me or John?
You.
Oh. Well, it's awful curious, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is.
I mean, I don't discount that people are actually seeing a ghost. Yeah. There, so many people claim to have seen a ghost, and it's just so funny that me learning about the ghost story actually led me to this story about the Declaration of Independence, and how the ghost in Sir Walter Scott's book was protecting kind of the English copy of the Bible, and here, the White Lady of Avinelle in Bedford, Virginia, is leading you to some assumptions about the Declaration of Independence.
Right, exactly.
That's kind of it's interesting.
It is very interesting.
You just can't make this stuff up.
I mean, you can't make it up.
I know. And you said this place. I'm pointing over here at my screen because I still got the picture of the house up on my screen. But so you said that this place, you can actually go there and stay.
Yes, I've communicated with the conservators of the house, and they've invited me to come there anytime I want and look around.
Oh, you got to take me with you.
Sure, I've discussed all this with them about what I found out in Sir Walter Scott's book, which they weren't really aware of before, and how it related to the Declaration and other aspects of the story they had never heard before. So they were pretty excited about that. So I lived in Virginia for a long time, so my brother lives right near there.
Okay.
And I never knew about it, when I lived there or anything. So I'm anxious for all this virus stuff to blow over and maybe arrange a trip there to go and even make a movie about this, possibly. This whole story.
Wow, that would be really good. Yeah, we should definitely do that. I know that John and I think we're going back there. We've got a couple of expeditions to make here once the weather warms up a little bit. I'm sorry. I love doing paranormal investigations and things of that nature, but when it's 5 degrees out, at night,
it kind of puts the kill on the fun time.
Exactly.
I kind of prefer it to be a little bit warmer than that, so we're kind of waiting for the weather to break. But we're going to check out Mothman, of course, so we're heading down there. But I want to go back to Gettysburg and that whole area. Because there's
there's lots of great stories there. Yeah.
Yes, there is, and we've got to delve into that.
Well,
even the video about the Beale treasure I put up today on YouTube.
I'm gonna check it out.
Is it shows a Pennsylvania connection to the Beale treasure story?
Really?
Yeah. If you watch the video, you'll see what popped up via a really nice lady, Emma Jean Rose's decipherment of the other 2 Beale ciphers that had not been deciphered before. And I really thought that was cool, because I had seen clues and people leading me to Pennsylvania as well in my own research about the Beale treasure.
Okay, this is the Beale treasure revealed. Mysteries beneath the. I got to click on it here. I'm going to try to stop it before it plays.
The Baneberry bush.
The Baneberry bush. Okay, there it is, right there. I got it. All right, so I'm gonna bring this up and show you guys real quick. All right, so that's it right there.
That's her book. She wrote a fictional book.
Yeah.
Telling the story that she discerned from her decipherment, and it's pretty interesting.
Wow.
And
okay, cool.
Involves the Ark of the Covenant and other things. It may be a Masonic ark and other Masonic regalia that was included in this treasure vault that they built. And her decipherment also suggests that there was an earlier expedition by the Beale family to Colorado prior to the one documented in the Beale papers. And then later I had information that a later member of the Beale family had actually claimed the same region where the treasure had supposedly been discovered in Colorado, and his family became so rich that his daughter owned the Hope Diamond.
Oh, wow.
After that. So this may be a case where we have a family from just after the Revolution that became aware of golden riches in Colorado, which was then part of Spain. So the first two trips they made there were secret. And then the third Beale family member was involved in claiming the area where the treasure had originally been found as described in the Beale papers.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to go. It's 20 minutes long. I'm gonna have to go watch this tonight when we're done here tonight.
Right.
Yeah, because I tell you, Cort, you have some interesting stuff for sure out there. This is that you just go to YouTube, folks, and look for Cort Lindahl, Lindahl, Cort Lindahl. He doesn't have his last name on the screen there, but go out and check this out. It's 20 minutes long, called "The Beale Treasure Revealed: The Mystery Beneath the Baneberry Bush." Cool.
Right. There's tons of Oak Island videos there and other strange, geography and history I've uncovered. And, next time I come on, I got a lot more stories for you. I think we went off on some tangents about, the Skinwalker Ranch and the Jarbidge.
But it's all.
I forgot to even prep you guys for that story. Jeff reminded me of it when he started talking about Bigfoot. So those are good stories that I think your listeners here on this show will like. Yeah. So I'll have to dredge my memory for more.
All right. Yeah. Well,
sounds good. Well,
always interesting for sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's that. See, that's what the show is. Okay. I mean, we kind of have an agenda, but if we go down, talking about something, it's okay. It's all about, it's just we're here to have a good time and explore.
Exactly.
And when we have a guest, I mean, we like to pick your brain about all this kind of
stuff. Sure. It's been a treat talking to you guys, but I do have to go right now.
All right.
But I'm always here for you to talk some more anytime you want about any of this stuff. So
all right. Thank you, Cort. Appreciate you coming by tonight.
We had a great chat.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Take care.
All right. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, that's cool.
Wow.
He does. He has such good stuff to share. And again, folks, if you want to check that out, I mean, he puts out YouTube videos all the time. Looks like my cat's trying to say hi here. But anyway, just look for Cort Lindahl on YouTube and you'll see that it's some really good stuff he's got. He just
so many.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So many comments, Jeff, all over the place. I mean, it's really hard to keep up with them all.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, you sent the cover. All right. Oh, there it is. There. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we could throw Cort's cover up, that would be
great.
Let's
do that real quick here. For sure. Yep. All right. This is the one he was just talking about, folks. This is the American Treasures of the Declaration of Independence. So, the Burton Vault, a Beale Treasure in Oak Island, and more. So, check that book out if you haven't already.
Now, this summer, I went on a mission for Cort, and I went to Williamsburg. That's in Williamsburg. That is the Powder magazine. It is an octagonal structure that Cort believes is instrumental in decoding Williamsburg.
Wow.
I'll just leave it at that. I mean, if you want to know more, read the book, but it's a fascinating read.
Nice.
but I was there, and he had me take some pictures for him. So, it was it was a lot of fun. And we have our phone line up, Jeff.
Oh, okay. Yep. You know what? How were we going to? We talked about how we were going to do that if somebody wanted to call in. Yeah. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for it. I should have had that done already.
Oh no, that's fine.
Firing it up now. But as always, we enjoy you guys calling in and sharing paranormal stories or sharing stories with us about UFOs, UAPs. We didn't even get the Cort's lizard story.
Oh my God, we forgot about the lizard story. How could we do that?
I know.
He was definitely telling us about it. He said it was a very large creature, about 6 feet in length. That's in his mind, smiled at him and made a hissing sound.
Yeah, and was in a place where lizards are not indigenous.
Turkey. And when he was serving with a friend of his, and they were fishing, and he heard the hissing sound, and then it came around this bush and stared at Cort and his friend, gave him a hissing smile, and Cort and his buddy looked at each other and got the heck out of there as quickly as they
dropped
could.
The fishing poles and ran.
Yeah, they're done. I think they might have been in a boat, and you know what? Cort wasn't sticking around to be a meal. So and he said there's no, he did the research, there's no creature like that in the area of Turkey,
right?
So what was it that scared Cort off, and there's been no explanation for it. So
right,
I have no idea what was there. It was just interesting. So hopefully he'll tell that story next time, but I thought the whole story of his UAP and that was interesting, with no sound. What was it that was floating through the air, and it remained altitude, and I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. And he's one of the top researchers in the fields that we studied, the Oak Island and the Founding Fathers, and he has a great grasp of history,
right?
And yet he's telling us about this UAP that he saw. It's just amazing. Everyone has a story.
Yep. Speaking of a story, here's one too that this goes to, Cort is very big on the American Revolution.
Yeah.
And this was a story that was out many years ago, back in the 1800s. The story was written, I think, around 1856, I think, or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And it involves President George Washington. Now, I'm going to bring up this picture. Now, and this kind of talks about it a little bit. This picture, apparently, George Washington went out. They were in Valley Forge, and he went out to pray. The war was not going well. The fighting that they were doing was not going well, and so he went out to pray. And while he was praying, an angel came and spoke with him. Now, this angel, he said it was just a beautiful angel. It was a male, I guess, angel, and spoke to him and showed him some visions of America going through the years and things that were going to happen.
Yes.
Now, in this story, there's some people say it's an absolute fake, which we really honestly we don't know. First, before I get into this too deep, how many? I just want to see a raise of hands of the folks that are watching here. How many of you have heard about the story of George Washington in Valley Forge going out on his own to the woods and to pray, and was visited by an angel, or was it I dare say the word of an alien or something? How many of you have heard about that? So I heard about it a long time ago. I always thought it was an absolute true story. Then upon looking into some of my research, I found out that, maybe some are saying it is not true, that it was created by a man. Let's see. I'm going to bring up, let's see here. Bear with me just a moment.
And there are other of our viewers who have heard the story. I've heard the story about how he was visited in a vision by aliens, So it's been kicking around for a while, and he credits the information with the founding of the U.S.
Yes.
He definitely, the formation of the U.S. and the success that Washington had was because of the vision given to him by an outside source that was not mankind.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the story goes.
Right.
So,
yeah. Now, according to the some sites you go out and say it's absolutely a fake story, no truth to it whatsoever. That it was a piece of fiction that was written by a Wesley. I'm trying to think of the guy's last name. I had it written down, and now for the life of me, I can't find where I wrote it down. I can find it again though. But it was a gentleman by the name of Wesley. It was a pseudonym he had. And it was called Washington's Vision.
Was that Charles Wesley Alexander?
There, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Charles Wesley Alexander.
Who published numerous allegory stories of famous American figures. And was this an allegory or was this fact?
Right.
Yes.
Now, one of the narratives about this says that was in 1859, and I'm looking over at my screen here because I'm actually reading some of this, but reminiscences of a 99-year-old Anthony Sherman who was supposedly present with George Washington's army at Valley Forge during the winter of 1777 and overheard Washington telling an officer that an angel had revealed a prolific vision of America to him. And so he gave this story to the person who then wrote it and put it out there. Now, again, is that true or not? We don't know, but check out the manifest destiny image. Was an angel related? I don't know. I'll have to check that out.
Perhaps manifest destiny was the proclamation that the Americas were to be taken and tamed, and there's the image has an angel granting permission for man to overrun the native populations and expand westward, so that's kind of the manifest destiny. I'm not sure if the two angels are related. Washington's was more like a vision.
Right. So, I mean, if you want to read it, you can certainly go out there. Just go out to Google and Google Washington's Vision, George Washington's Vision. But basically, supposedly this angel had shown him 3 different visions. Actually, I think there was 4 altogether, calling him presently the voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." While at the same time, a visitor extended an arm eastwardly, and now beheld a heavy vapor at some distance and folded on. And then this scene came about, showing Europe, Africa, Asia, and America. And then talking about, basically was telling him what's going to happen in America and what he was doing to get this going and how important it was for him to do what he was doing.
Yes.
George Washington. In establishing America as a country, as a nation, and what it would do going forward, that it was somehow the destiny of God or whatever to do this. So again, was it a true story or was it a fabrication of this Alexander who just simply made it up? I don't know. What do you guys think? It wasn't in our history books. No, it wasn't, Jan. It certainly was not in there. And again, some of the sites you look at, one of the warnings right at the very top, false story, not true. Some of them you see right off the bat, it'll say, boom, false, not true at all. But other ones say that there is some validity to it. I don't know. But apparently this guy who was Anthony Sherman, who was there with him during the war, had related this story before his death, and that's why the story was then written and put out. But again, we don't know for sure, but interesting nonetheless, was it not?
Very interesting. And the question is it that art imitating reality or reality imitating art?
Right.
Is there validity to it, and it just happened to be put down in an allegoric sense? But very much, a lot of times it's not allegory at all. It has a real life connection. Right. It is fact. And certainly the powers that be sometimes want you to see the allegory, because then you're not going to go searching for the actual place and the actual time and events and things of that sort. So it's almost cloaked, Jeff.
Yeah.
But I think there's a reality to it. I think, how else would he have certain insights into how to, the founding of the United States?
Mm-hmm.
How does he get? He was told about the basically how the Revolutionary War. He was told certain things. He was given premonitions. You can't really explain. I mean, he claims that he can't really explain how he had that information. Could have been as simple as spies, maybe, or it could have been a vision.
Right. And they ended up, right after that in Valley Forge, which things were not looking good.
No.
Things were looking rather bad at that time.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, everything turned around in their favor. That rally, he rallied the troops. He spread that. Apparently, I don't know if he spread that story to how many of the troops if it was true, how many of them heard it, but it did rally the troops and they ended up winning. So,
yes.
I don't know. Just kind of interesting how that all played out. So it's one of those little things that you find, and I just have to, have to look into it just to see what I can find out.
Yeah. But it's not the first and last time you have accounts of UAPs with presidents. I mean, we know Jimmy Carter had an experience that he talks about when fishing. Certainly Ronald Reagan talks about one that he had in California. Yep. And, as we move closer to the public becoming aware of these matters, I mean, you can't silence a couple billion cell phones now. Everyone has a camera and a video device practically, and so at some point it becomes a critical mass, and you just can't shut it all down.
Right.
I think social media kind of was the last pin to drop, the last thing to drop, where they have to go back and look at this. And did they not start a new Project Blue Book, Jeff, recently?
Yes, they had. I've forgotten what it's called now.
But I know they've started that, and the Air Force, it's in the Air Force, and now they're reinvestigating these UAPs, rebranded, of course, from UFOs to UAPs, and now they're studying those things. So they're out there studying UAPs, UAP phenomena. The Air Force and military has leaked footage, and everyone out here, I hope, has seen the footage by now. Yep. And I think we're going to get more and more leaked footage over the years, as there's like you and I have talked, and we've talked to our viewers about this, as they're softening up the American public for disclosure.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening. They are softening us up for a reveal. They're telling us, well, I mean, and for them to just simply come out already and say that, they're the things that the Navy taking the Tic Tac video and Kimball, those videos there, and looking at them and saying, we don't know what they are. That's already coming out to say that there are,
of course,
craft being under some kind of propulsion that we just don't understand. And we don't know what they are. I mean, so there you go. That's the beginnings of it, of spoon feeding us a little bit more information.
Yep. And it's just a matter of time before all this information is made public. It was supposed to be made public during the Reagan administration. In fact, they had a traveling exhibit, which I've seen footage of before.
Yeah, you talked about that.
And suddenly it's gone. You can't find it when you need it.
Right.
But they showed the footage of a exhibition that was supposed to go from large city to large city, showing the history of mankind and its involvement with extraterrestrials. Now that was scrapped. It was never made public for whatever reason. And then at the same time, you have Star Wars that came about during the Reagan administration, and the reach for outer space again during the Cold War. What was all that about?
Yep. Yeah, that's what. Who said that? Cat Fulton said that. And then a Space Force. Yep.
And then a Space Force.
Yep.
And it's funny, Cat, that right after everything that Reagan was doing, and he had his own UAP experience. The Star Wars program comes into being, and whatever President Trump knew or didn't know, he knew enough to come up with the Space Force. He had, come on, Jeff. Every president knew about the Tic Tac shapes and the thing. Yeah. He had to have had a briefing, even if the briefing was kind of watered down for Trump, because he's an image person, he's a picture person. But those images across President Trump's desk, there's no doubt in my mind. And then suddenly, a Space Force, emerged. you know, and now there's a Space Force, and it's under the Biden administration where the Space Force is. What's come of it, I have no idea, but you know, it is budgeted. There is a budget for it now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And why would they go through all of that? And you know, they didn't have you didn't have you know, the Democrats and Republicans fighting over it that much. I mean, you know, it's so I mean, both have to realize that this is something that was needed, right? I mean, it was Trump was putting that through, and you figure everything he was trying to do was being. And I'm not going to get into politics here, but you know, so obviously, I guess the point I'm trying to make is government knows about it. They know about the connection with life from outside of this planet. They are very aware of it, and they do find a need that, and this may be taking us down. You know, people laugh and joke about the TV show or the movie, and then the TV show Stargate.
Yes.
You know, but honestly, who's to say that something like that doesn't really happen? Isn't really? I mean, I'm not talking about an actual Stargate where we're traveling to these other planets.
Sure.
But I'm talking about a group of military, an arm of the military that is involved in space travel we may not know about, or something going on, you know, with us stuff that we're just not aware of, and they're not going to talk about it.
No.
And then the more we get these reveals, these little bits and pieces they're letting out, we're not going to get full disclosure because it would be, you know, the government's not going to do that. Anything that is go ahead.
It can't. The fabric of society would start to unweave, you know, to a certain extent. I mean, you know, there's a certain percentage of the population that knows the truth of it and is just waiting. They've been waiting for years. But, you know, there's another percentage of the population that would completely freak out. And they would be like, what's going on? And then, and of course, your religious institutions. It's not like the Vatican. The Vatican itself has said, hey, you know, if there are UFOs, there's room for UFOs and aliens in this world because we really can't confine God's creative ability.
Yeah.
The Vatican has
right from the Vatican.
Yep. You know, and that was an official papal statement. And so how do you get around that? No, they know as well as anyone else. I mean, you don't think those things are hidden in the Vatican archives?
Yeah. Oh, I know. Wouldn't that be something to get in there and look at some of that stuff?
Oh my goodness. I can only imagine.
Never will. And that's never going to happen. But oh man.
But yeah, I love this comment. Could it be the Space Force was already in place and was at risk of disclosure? And so they had, that's a great point.
That is
because the Space Force was supposedly put in place under the shadow government, which there is a shadow government. There's a Black Ops. You know, it's a line on the budget every year of Black Ops, and they won't tell you what it is. It's not called Black Ops.
It was Tom Burns, by the way, that said that. Yep.
Okay. And it just has a Black Ops title names, but it doesn't tell you what it's for. And you know it's for whatever the government's doing secretly, you know, research and development and R&D and things of that sort. But yeah, could the Space Force have been instituted
around a long time? Yeah,
30 or 40 years ago? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And does every president know about it? Absolutely.
Yep.
And there are things orbiting the Earth, the secret satellites that we don't know about? Absolutely. You know, it's been around for a while. We just, you know, it's how do you disclose it to the American public? Right.
And how much do you want to disclose? You know, and I don't mind them. You know, in a way, if they tell us what they know about alien craft coming around, or, you know, the fact, yes, we've been in contact with alien beings or whatever. Okay, that would be awesome to know. And but are they going to, you know, anything that they have that is in the interest of our own national security and protecting this country?
Yes.
Do I mind them not disclosing that? No, I'm sorry. I'm on board. It's like the stealth, you know, the stealth fighter. We didn't know about it for a long, long time because it was secret military technology.
Correct.
They didn't want our other countries knowing about it. Okay.
Yes.
So I am okay with them keeping that under wraps. I am. But other stuff I would like to know, like, have they been in contact? Do they know that have they been in contact with any alien life forms? Or has anybody you know, we've seen the video of the triangular shaped craft that was over top the Pentagon in shadow.
Yes.
I mean,
and it's shaped like a pyramid.
It's shaped like a pyramid.
I mean, it rotates like a pyramid. It's just not triangle. It's a pyramid.
Yeah.
We've all seen that. And, what is that?
Right.
And it's kind of curious that the Egyptians, what did they build? They build pyramids looking quite similar to that. And then you have Akhenaten, who has an elongated head. And worship the disk sun god. The disk sun god. So, it's and the pharaohs that came after did not. But he did. And explain that what the disk sun god, which would be the bottom of something. Yes,
there's an interesting question that Kat just put up.
What's that?
I have pondered. You can pop that one up.
Yep, it's right there.
That's Kat Fulton right there. Think about that for a second. Ponder that for a minute.
Well, for those viewers who are listening to us, I'll read the question or the comment. If an alien civilization, say 1,000 light years away, developed warp speed, decided to visit us, would they arrive before we even knew their light was there? Wow. Because you're traveling beyond the speed of light.
Right.
So I would say yes, they would.
That's a
great question. That's deep.
Kind of a mind-blowing question because we look at the stars at night and we know that the star that you're looking at night, way out there. I'm not talking about planets in our solar system. I'm talking about stars you see way out in, not in the Milky Way even.
Yes.
But you're looking at it. The light you're seeing is not real time. It took that time for that light to travel to us in light years, however many light years it took for that to get here. So you're not looking at it in real time. So if somebody traveled here by the means of light speed, a warp speed or whatever.
Yes.
Would they arrive before we even knew? I mean,
well, they would have to, because they're traveling faster than light.
So would they get here back at the time of if they left now and they travel faster than light, would they get here back in the German, the days of the World War I or II or something? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. And the Nazis were experimenting. They were experimenting with the bell, and the Nazis were all about back engineering of technologies like this. So who knows?
Wow, that's kind of a question that's gonna blow my mind now. I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight. Thanks.
It's a really good question. It's one of those kind of like, okay, let's try to wrap our minds around it, and you go, the mind blowing question.
Yeah.
And here's another question. Yes.
Yeah, I guess they would. If they're traveling faster than light, they would get here before we saw the light of their planet. If they left on the
that's
today.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, you're killing me, Kat.
it really is. And we have
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, you just kind of blew my. I can't sleep now. I'm going to be up all night thinking about this. Light on Earth will travel in a straight line. Yes.
Yep. And here's another one. I mean, our comments are coming in fast and furious tonight, Jeff.
I do not think faster than light is faster than time. No, but the time it takes for the light to travel here, if they left from a planet in the Alpha Centauri system,
yep.
How long does it take for that light to get here to us? So we're seeing light that is 25 light years ago.
Correct.
It took 25 light years to reach us from Alpha Centauri. So if that's the case and they're traveling faster than light, they would beat the light getting here.
Someone's saying it's 4.6 years.
So, yeah.
Yeah, possible.
But in the end, does it matter? No, I guess not. I don't know.
And Kate makes an excellent point. I knew about this in WW2. The UFOs by all forces were called Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters. Yep.
In fact, that's one of my favorite bands is Foo Fighters, and that's where they got the name from.
Mm-hmm.
So they were around. And so what do you do with that, Jeff? Well, I mean, what a mind bender that is.
Yeah. Folding space. That's a whole different. That's such a neat concept because you take the folded paper concept You take the two distances. You got two places, one here, one here, and then you fold it. Now you just a straight line. It's so much closer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can't
Interesting.
That.
I know, it's mind blowing. But again, these are things that I don't know. The closest star to us, other than I know, I was just throwing out as an example.
Yep.
At the speed of light is 4.6 years away at the speed of light.
And then we're not going to get into this tonight, I don't think, but there are wormholes, which is straight out of Star Trek. And what the wormholes do, they allow you to travel distances that normally you couldn't travel in the standard space-time format.
I saw something about a YouTube video saying something about that is it possible that the warp bubble could already be in development, that they've already kind of figured out how to do a warp bubble around a craft so that it could travel faster than the speed of light.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
And if WW2 breaks out, I'll be blasting Foo Fighters out of my speakers. Well, we have this Ukraine thing going on, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? I'm always wondering, is there going to be any intercession if there are ETs watching this, and this could be a major war coming up? And I've always wondered, okay, maybe there's nothing to it, but then my science fiction brain goes, well, because there has been interference before during times of war, Jeff, and there's been documentation of crafts, let's not call them ETs, appearing over nuclear sites and literally shutting down nuclear missile sites. Like suddenly they go dead.
Yep.
And the military has documented it, and and they go offline because somehow these crafts know that if we launch, it's the end of our civilization. Yep. So I'm wondering what would happen, and this always kind of rattles in my brain, that if there is something, and it's a big if, it's a big rabbit hole, but if there's something out there, would they allow us, not a small war, but really go to a third world war?
I don't know.
Or suddenly would they all uncloak where we were fighting, and we just sat there in amazement as we're watching and looking at the aliens, and the fighting suddenly stops? What would happen? We have so many comments. Good grief.
I know. That's I was just sitting reading some of them. Eric says, how do you see if you're going faster than light? I don't know. You'd be in total darkness, would you? At that point?
Yep. You would be Or you would just see light passing you, like how they show in Star Trek.
Or you're passing light.
Or you're passing light. Sorry, yeah, you're passing light. That's true.
And which would give you that star field effect.
Yeah,
driving. It's like driving in a snowstorm. Hey, you guys have driven in a snowstorm, right?
That's exactly how it
beams
is.
On. You're in hyperspace.
Absolutely, that's how it would be.
Isn't that weird? I've done that before. Going, ooh, we're going to warp speed. Turn on the high beams.
Someone else. I think sound is slower than light. It is. You can be on the hill. Definitely. This is a great point. You can be on the hill and see someone strike a bell, but you don't hear the sound until after.
Right.
Which is true. It's like thunder and lightning. You see the lightning first, and then 2, 3, 4 second roll, you hear the thunder. And depending on how the lightning and thunder coincide, you can tell how close or far off a thunderstorm is. Mm-hmm. The bigger the distance means that the thunderstorm is a little further out. So, and this is something the Maritimes always use, the captains, to kind of gauge how close a storm was. If the lightning and thunder are boom, boom right on top of each other,
it's real close.
You're doing this at night and you're caught up in a storm. Well, then you're in a bit of trouble. But there is a bit of distance. At least you could figure out what direction the sound's coming from and kind of steer your ship the other direction.
Right. The speed of light, I guess, is 186,282 miles per. Let's see. The speed of light. I just Googled it real quick here. Per second. Yeah. 186,282 miles per second is the speed of light.
Wow.
The speed of sound is much slower than that. I'm sorry.
A lot of comments coming in, Jeff. Here's one by the Awakened one. The claim of traveling faster than the speed of light is possible, and the ability to travel back and forward in time is a reality humans are yet to realize.
Correct. Yeah. I don't know that that's possible. Traveling faster than, I mean, yeah, going through time. I don't know, but they said, didn't they do a watch experiment?
Yeah,
where they sent up a watch into orbit and then got it back and compared it, and they were synchronized when they left, and it was actually slower or something, and
they're slower.
it was actually lost time, not much, but it did lose time while it was in space. I think Armstrong had something to do with it.
Yes, absolutely. And we got a little round table going here, Jeff. In our last minutes, this comments are coming in heavy. If you stop time, you won't be able to see. Light is dependent matter moving. Bad superpower to have. Okay, it is. I mean, light is considered, very slow matter moving. Or very fast matter moving, I should say. And it's always been theorized, the quantum level, that we're nothing but light creatures, but our senses are so crude that we can't see it. We see ourselves in time, but really we are beings of light. That's been put out there in the quantum world for some time. What's this one?
That's another one hard to wrap your brain around.
Yeah, I've heard the number of seconds equates to the number of miles. This is with the traveling of I guess the traveling of sound and light. And then, Amy, I would love to a further on this. Time moves differently in space. Does it really?
Well, again, talking about that stopwatch or the clock, the watch,
yes,
synchronized watches going up into one into space and one coming, here on Earth. And when they got back, they were off.
True.
I'm going to have to look up that experiment now because yeah.
And people are saying, that light you're seeing is the light of you, stream soul divinity.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had the close your eyes and see the sparkles? Yeah.
I've seen lights. I've seen lights when I close my eyes before, but it's more like a divine light versus what you just described. Oh, geez, look at this. Another comment, Jeff. I'll have you read this one off.
The rate of time is not constant throughout the universe. An easy and practical example is the rate of time on Earth is slower than the rate of time on a GPS satellite in orbit. This time discrepancy must be accounted for, otherwise GPS system would not be accurate.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Wow. So it is. I mean, it's definitely Tom put that up there. Tom Burton. Thank you, Tom.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. So yeah, an easy and practical example is the rate. Yep.
Oh, sorry. Let's go back there.
No. I was going it is an example of the rate of time on Earth is slower than the rate of time on a GPS satellite in orbit. So that's that experiment that I was talking about.
Yes.
Armstrong did that.
Yes. And that's interesting. To go back in time, you bend light. Now that's been batted around for years. Whether that's more for me science fiction than fact, but Einstein does talk about things of that sort.
Amy brings up a point here too, talking about the light you see when you close your eyes, or is it I was thinking like muons. I was thinking about muons because muons are traveling through your body all the time. We're constantly being bombarded with muons. So, I mean, is that what you're seeing? You're seeing particles traveling through your eyelids? I don't know, or through your body. I don't know. That's
a great question. Who knows? Well, I'm going to put up the number one last time, Jeff, as we start to wrap up.
All right. The phone is on. I did turn the phone on.
Okay, so we got anyone else? I know there's a couple people that want to call in tonight, but we'll throw it up for a couple more minutes. And is that the correct number? I guess it is.
That's it.
But yeah, I exactly it, Jeff. I think that time works differently depending on where you are in the universe. Can you bend energy? Can you bend time? Maybe.
No, that's it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say what Amy and Kat are talking about there is that it's our soul energy. You know, it is definitely your body, your soul within your body is energy. In my opinion, anyway, it is energy.
Yes.
And when you pass, that energy leaves, and that's when I, because I'm a Christian, I believe that my energy will leave and it will be manifest with the Lord.
Yes.
But again, I mean, so if you're not religious, okay, you may not. Oh, we got a call coming in here.
Okay.
All right, so let's take this one. Here we go. Hi, this is Jeff. Can I help you?
Hey, Jeff. Are you guys still on here?
Yeah, you're going to need to turn down whatever you were watching the show on. Turn that down, please.
I'm muting right now.
Okay, good. That way it doesn't feed back on us.
Hey, Jeff. Are you guys still on here?
Wow. We're getting a lot of feedback.
So, the way the family teachings go, hang on, it's still not muted.
Yeah, hold on. You're going to have to mute that.
We're getting a lot of feedback. We're going to have to turn the other end off.
Okay, hopefully that's better.
There you go. All right, that's cool. All right.
The way the family teachings go about your soul and your energy.
Mm-hmm.
Your soul is the energy. It's the lights that you see when you're closing your eyes.
Ah, okay.
And that lives in your brain. That's why the Celts had all kinds of weird traditions about when somebody died and you cut their head off and you put it in their hands or in their lap or some other weird crap, because they're trying to make sure your soul stays connected with your body when they would go bury it. But when your soul leaves, when the energy is constant, right? That's what science tells us.
Yes.
It can't be created or destroyed.
Right.
So when you die, your soul leaves your body. Well, that's energy leaving the stuff. And then that's how you interact. But to amp up your power of your soul, if you were looking for an ability to do strange things, paranormal things, if you will, you would need to focus on that energy. And the more you focus on that energy, the stronger it's going to get. And then you would eventually be able to use that energy to interact with other things, with other objects, because there's energy like the force that they talk about in Star Wars. There's a force on all objects.
Right.
And you would be able to use your energy to interact with that energy to make it do things.
Right. I do think that when you talk about the force, there's other, and I think he kind of took that from some of the ancient talkings about, this energy that is in all things that, and if you look at, everything like an aura, okay, you get into the whole subject about auras. Everything has energy. Every living thing produces an aura, and that aura is a like a visible part of the visible energy within that living thing. And so, I mean, so if you can see that, well, that's something for another show, another time. But yeah, I totally agree. You can't destroy it. It cannot be destroyed. It just simply will move from one place to another or become part of something else, another energy somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. And so many ancient, what am I trying to say? Cultures over the years talk about something like this. Yep. You have the, even the Egyptians, talking about, when you were talking about that, there's the eye that's inside your brain. They call it the eye of, I'm trying to look it up here. Horus, the eye of Horus.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah.
Isn't that supposed to be like the
eye of Horus, Horus in one thing into the Indian culture with your, with your chakras. That's your third eye.
Yep.
Yeah. The third eye taps you into certain things. I mean, what you really want to be focusing though on is if you're trying to amp all that up, is your connection to source. So you want to be less concentrating on if you wanted visions, you would concentrate on your third eye. If you wanted to be more connected to all the energy of everything all around you, you would concentrate on your crown chakra. That's supposed to be your connection to source.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
So you got to figure it out. I mean, most of the time, though, with what they tell you, though, is you sort of sit and meditate and you focus on your various chakras if you're going down the Hindu path. And what your color, your energy appears as would be the chakra that you are in most connection with. And that is really going to be your power base.
Okay.
Because that's where your skill sets are.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you think happens to that when you pass? What do you think happens to that energy?
Your spirit. I mean, so it's where if you pass over to, heaven, or for initial judgment, if you will, before you get where your actual placement goes. You have to you have to go up there and see if you can get in. Right? So you're based on your judgments and actions and stuff. So I think it leaves the body. So it leaves the body, and so So when you're finding stories of hauntings, right? You've kind of got different sort of flavors of haunting. They're not all identical.
Right.
Right. But you'll find that during certain time periods in history, the more involved people are with churches and such things like this, that they tell them what to expect after they die. So they're expecting the bright light. They're not afraid of the bright light. They're like, oh, there it is. Somebody told me this would be here. And then they walk into it and they go up to judgment. If they're afraid of the white light and they run away from it, then they get stuck here. Right. So it just kind of depends on what you've been taught to look for. But one way or the other, regardless of the culture, whether they're sending a banshee or the Grim Reaper or, whoever.
Right.
Yep.
Somebody either comes to usher you along, or you're supposed to see the opening in the portal and go through. If you were to miss that because you were afraid or something was happening, you can go look for what they call a dolmen. Dolmen is a portal.
Yep.
Now, the bigger danger would be if you were going to take yourself into what my family calls the gray world. Yeah, you don't want to go there, though. It's a good place to get trapped. In Dante's literature, they would refer to that as like purgatory.
Purgatory, yes, exactly. That's where I was going to just say purgatory. The
you
place caught
between.
Yeah, right. That place caught between heaven and hell.
Right. You don't want to be there. It's actually considered a very, very dangerous place. I mean, it's where you naturally go to when you're astrally projected.
Wow.
Because you're not quite in here or there, but you're sort of passing through there to go on the rest of your travels. You're not supposed to stop and hang out there.
Wow.
You won't like anything that you find there if it finds you, because whatever is there is trapped and it wants out.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
You want to avoid being there for as long as possible.
Right. I was writing a book. I actually have several chapters of a book written about that called Purgatory, basically. And it's about a person who got into purgatory not by dying, accidentally got in there, and the souls wanted to get him. They wanted to use his. It was like a balance, one coming in, one going out, and they were trying to get out and have him get stuck there. So anyway, but writing the books, it scared me so much I quit writing it. Cat Fulton brought up a good point about a story here about, he said, when my brother passed, I was holding his hand as he breathed last. I felt the electric buzz in my palm out of nowhere. It lasted 6 seconds or so, then stopped dead. In that time, I saw his energy dissipate into the light, and he told me it was all good. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of people who work hospice and things like that have stories of something similar.
Yes.
When they're standing there with somebody who's dead. You can tell when their soul has left the body.
Yep.
You can tell it becomes lifeless.
Yep.
It's apparent.
Yep. I like this other comment, Jeff. I'm going to throw it up if you can read it.
Native American witch doctors use their souls to possess animals for centuries. The CIA have also used souls for astral projection, remote viewing, and out-of-body spying experiences for decades.
Now, this was used during the Cold War. I'm really close to Fort Meade. The person that was over at Fort Meade that was kind of spearheaded this, or one of the foremost astral projectors, was a man by the name of Russell Targ, Targ. And there was a whole division over at Fort Meade, maybe 10 miles from here, that did remote viewing and would spy on the Soviets, and their information, from my understanding, was very accurate.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
How is that possible? They had a whole division, and it was known as PSYOPs.
Yep.
And it's been shut down since, or has it? I have
or has it?
Or has it? But they would use this remote viewing. And Russell Targ has written books on it, and appeared on Coast to Coast and other places, where he talks about the CIA and the military using it to spy on the Soviets. Do I think that happened? I absolutely do.
Yep. Yeah.
It's just the type of
remote viewing sounds to me like astral projection when you're awake.
Yeah.
Because most of the time when people talk about astral projection, you're asleep, but you don't have to be asleep to do astral projection if you focus on it and you get good at it.
Right.
Well, one's the removal
skill set in a different word.
One's supposedly, in theory, one's the removal of the soul from the body to project outside the body, and the other one is being able to use your viewing, your third eye, whatever it is, ability to be able to see events through like a quantum entanglement other places. So they're not the same thing. But the remote viewing was more what the military was interested in. And from my understanding, Russell Targ and group were very accurate. So I just find this all fascinating.
Yeah, it truly is. And you know what Kat was saying?
Remote viewing could be like clairvoyance then?
Yeah, possibly. Yep. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the name at the beginning. Is this Amy?
Amy.
Amy, okay. I thought so. I wasn't sure. I was asking John if he heard, because we had that weirdness going on at the beginning.
Now, Houston Dave has dinner ready for us, Chef. Look at this.
Oh, enchiladas.
Enchiladas. That sounds good, Houston Dave.
Cool. So everybody to Houston Dave's house in Texas.
Absolutely.
It's funny, not funny, but Kat, mentioning that, and here we go again with this is Janet. When my little girl died, I saw her body rise up and fall off the bed. It was her spirit leaving her body. But as I put her back on the bed, she had a glow about her, like at peace. And that's really interesting that Janet, you and Kat bringing this up, because I don't know if I've told the story before, but I'll make it brief here. But I was in the hospital room with my friend's father. They were waiting for the boys to get there because he had a heart attack. His body was shutting down, and he was completely out at this point. There was a few times where I witnessed him lean up out of bed. His eyes were closed. He hadn't been talking. He hadn't been conscious with us for a while. I would see him lean up out of bed with his hand reaching, and he was mumbling and saying, in one time he said somebody's name, and I looked over at his daughter-in-law, who happened to be there with me, and I said, "Who's that person that he's talking about?" And she said, "That's his sister who has passed." He was reaching out, leaning up in bed and reaching out for somebody. He eventually passed, and it was just like a day later. But he was reaching out for somebody, like they were trying to take his hand, and he was trying to take their hand.
Yep.
So you mentioned about people coming and taking you, and I totally, watching that happen, I'm going, he saw somebody. Somebody was there reaching for him. It was not a mistake. I mean, it was so clear watching him lean up like that and try to take somebody's hand. And
it has everything to do with where the current trajectory of what people expect to find, right? But there are still certainly people who are incredibly religious, but as an overall, religion is not something like all churches are reporting that it's down. Attendance is down. People's belief in certain structures is eroding on society as an overall.
Yep.
But there are plenty of stories of people who they're passing, and they say that a family member comes for you.
Yep.
Well,
so a family member comes for you, because if that's what you expect, then that's the experience you're going to get.
Right. Yeah.
I think Jeff, this might be a future show, and
I think so. Yeah.
NDEs, near-death experiences, and
I
think we just found a future show.
All right.
We'll definitely have to return to this topic.
Yeah, for sure. And I see, a lot of people wanted to mention my grandmother was talking to my grandfather, who died in 1932, and she died in 1983.
Yeah.
Yep. People expect the people to come for them, and then they do.
Yeah.
Right.
But Einstein was right. Energy is neither created or destroyed.
Right.
You know, and if that's true, you know, the soul lives on.
Yep.
You know, scientifically. So you just can't take that exactly.
Right.
Well, Jeff, we've really run the gamut. Thank you, Miss Amy, for the phone call. My God, there's a lot to think about today. I won't be able to go to bed for a couple hours now.
Yeah, I know. Thinking about that. Yeah. My mind has been blown a couple times.
Yeah, of course. This has been fascinating. Fascinating 2 hours, Jeff. It's gone by quick. And we thank Amy for her call.
Yes, thank you, Amy, for calling in. Appreciate your insights.
You guys have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Wow, Jeff, that went by quick.
It did. Yeah, it sure did. I know. And Cort was fascinating too. He's got some really interesting stories, that man. I tell you.
So we'll have to have him back at some point in the future.
Oh, absolutely. And we've got some other folks that we're working on lining up to come on to the show with us. We're going to try to get Maddie Blake even to come on. But I mentioned Christian Roper too. I got to talk to him again about that, because he mentioned that he's got some pretty interesting stories he'd like to share with us. So
sure.
And we've got, Alessandra, Gretchen, I mean,
and others that we've talked to, which we still have to line up. So it'll be fascinating when we do.
Yeah. So we're going to try to do this. I will try to stay with it every other Sunday. Of course, this one being here, and then we're going to try to do another show again in 2 weeks on the Sunday.
Well, are we going to try it on Super Bowl?
Sunday? That's Super Bowl Sunday, isn't it?
Well, in the near future, within the next
we may not do
couple
that
weeks. We'll coordinate with Jake Roberts to make sure we're not casting the same time Ghost of Bacon is, but soon, and then we'll probably be opposite Jake Roberts in the future.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Which is the plan.
So if Sunday night works out for you, let us know what you think. Let us know if Sunday night's good for you guys.
Great.
It kind of works out okay for John and I. Opposite the other shows that we've been doing, Oak Island and Beyond Oak Island and all that stuff. So
it's
let
fun.
us know what you think. But so fun. It is fun, and we'd love to have you guys calling in and sharing your stories and insights, because as always, you guys have some great information to share with us too.
Absolutely.
So it's really cool. But near-death experiences. We're gonna have to do that show.
Well, absolutely, in the near future.
Yep. All right.
Okay, Jeff. On that note.
All right. Well, thank you folks for being here with us tonight.
Thanks,
again, if you're out on YouTube, make sure you click on that subscribe button for us. And this will go into the playlist. I created a playlist for the YouTube channel JFree906, and I put these into that other playlist, all the Beyond Our World stuff. So feel free to go out there and check those out anytime. And of course, we have our YouTube page or our Facebook page, Beyond Our World. So, guys, have a great rest of your week. And for those of you who like Oak Island, we will see you on Wednesday night. John and I will be here, probably with Colin. And I don't know. I got to reach out, and I got to do that tonight. Make sure who's coming on with us.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, folks, for being here.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night. All right,
take care.
Bye now.
Bye.